Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Welcome to the show. Our text and WhatsApp number 083 333 975. We're joined by Mary and John Stevens. How are you folks?
Great.
How are you?
Thanks,
Grand,
Thanks for coming in. Firstly, a couple of comments about the things we did yesterday. Miriam Daly said our piece regarding Luke Griffin. Heard the interview. Great to see him doing so well. On the new climate plan, Lisa Moran says, what's America and China doing? Little old Ireland's going to have to save the world. Jason Murphy say, wouldn't it be better to look after the hospitals? Paul Finn says, just like the banking crisis, our noble rich politicians will offer the people of Ireland as sacrificial lambs and want to pay for everybody else's emissions. Una Dunphy says, we need to tackle the fossil fuel companies and provide a huge amount of public transport. Alan Martin says, don't give me targets for 2040. We need targets for this year and next year. Now, if you look at the local newspapers today, front page News and Star, also prominently displayed in the Munster Express, the very sad story and very powerful story of Cassie. She's 8 years of age. Is it Cassie, is how it's pronounced?
28.
28 years of age. Is it
Cassandra? Cassandra
would be.
Call her Cassie.
Call her Cassie, yeah. John and Mary Stevens from military barracks.
Yeah.
And your mammy and daddy.
Yeah.
To Cassandra. And for those that don't know, what is the genetic disorder that Cassie has?
Well, Cassie has a disease called tuberous sclerosis complex, TSC.
It's hard enough even to say.
Say it, yeah. It's a bit of a tongue twister. So what it means basically is that she has calcium tumours in her brain, right? And they're hard, they're like bone, right? But each place that the tumour is, that part of her body doesn't work. The signals don't get through. Say, for instance, she has no speech because there's a tumour there. You know, she can't toilet because there's a tumour there. You know, but the worst, I suppose, symptom of the TSC is the epilepsy.
Has she had this from birth, John?
She had her first seizure in the labour ward.
Tell us about when you heard about it first and having to...
Geez, I was 9 months old, was it, when we got the
diagnosis?
The actual name on it.
Yeah, that was in Dublin. And came back on the train that evening. Don't even remember coming back. Just a complete blank. Only girl, 5 boys with her, you know, so...
We also have an autistic son, Jonathan, and he's the eldest, and we couldn't understand, again, it happened twice to us. You know, we had Jonathan and then our only girl.
Were you cursing your luck? Were you giving out about God? Were you like, did you
everyone and anyone?
It
what did we do
took
to
a long time
deserve
to
this?
sink in. You know,
What did we do to deserve this? We're just normal. Like, what did we do? We love our kids. We just, and then I kind of went into a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a slump, like, where it was very surreal. I couldn't believe it. I just kind of went quiet. You know, it just wasn't. I was numb. You know, I just couldn't.
Depressed even?
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. The anger starts first, then the whole questioning, and then the realisation that
it's our fault.
This is here for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
This is not something that'll change after 6 months. This is something that's there for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And your whole lives are now going to revolve around Cassie.
Yeah. You know.
No holidays, nothing like that.
Haven't had a holiday in 25 years.
So,
we haven't slept in the same bedroom in 10 years. Like, but it's all for Cassie. I sleep in the same room next to her, in a bed next to her, because of the seizures. You know, so, like, she is our life.
Her life revolves around
her. It's not.
Tell us about her personality.
Oh, she have a right little personality on her now. She mightn't be able to talk, but she can throw you some dirty look, you know. And you say to her, I call them the lady hands. When she doesn't want it, and the hand goes up, and she kind of puts a little tot on it, like, you know, as if to say, go away. You know, she's all right. You'll know now if she's not.
Yeah.
You know. And I call it the seal, right? Because the boys years ago used to be laughing at her. When she's angry or she's tormented, she slaps her thighs and she goes, So we called it the seal. So even when the boys were young, they'd say, "Oh, she's doing the seal again," you know, which meant she's in bad humour. You know,
She can't do anything for herself.
No.
Absolutely
No.
nothing.
No. She can't feed herself. She can't use her toilets herself.
her bowel doesn't work, her bladder doesn't work. She's no speech, she has seizures. Like, I do it all. I work her body for her. If I'm explaining it right, you know, I work her body for her, you know. But behind it all, like, she's ours, we'll do it, you know. And if it, like as I said this time last week, we were as anonymous as anybody.
Because, and a lot of people have come up to you in the last week and said they couldn't believe how you've coped, or couldn't believe what's been going on, because you're ordinary, decent people.
That's all, yeah.
And you're not going to go up and talk about how great we are and anything like
No.
that. And I know you're very nervous coming in here this morning.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in, because you're angry about what happened last week.
Yeah.
Why did
Yeah.
you get angry?
It was the way I watched it. Gino had told me that he was going to ask the question, and I had given Gino permission to use our names.
Gino is
Gino Kenny. TD Kenny.
People Before Profit TD.
Yes.
He stood up in the Dáil and he asked a question.
Yeah.
And Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach of this country, was sitting down listening to him.
He sat down, didn't lift his head, scribbling, doodling, whatever he was doing, and he went, same answer. Right. Now, I'm not a politician, okay, but it wasn't the same question as Micheál Martin. Micheál Martin had asked him about the Access programme. Right, he'd standing up and he looked him in the eye and gave him an answer. Gino had 4 minutes. The first 2 minutes he asked him the same question, but the second 2 minutes were specifically about my sick baby, my daughter.
And this was about medicinal cannabis.
Yeah.
And the use of medicinal cannabis, because in your situation, it helps Cassie
It's
enormously.
life-saving, and I have no qualms in saying it. It's saving her life. Last year, Cassie was so bad, she was in intensive care in Cork. She had 52 seizures in a 24-hour period.
Epileptic seizures.
Yes.
52.
In a 24. They were so violent, they broke her 2 insteps. They broke the metatarsal in both her feet. Right. So I have no qualms putting my hand on my heart and saying she won't survive another bang like that. Her little heart won't take it.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to explain to people, that
And this is why.
It's
a miracle.
To us, it's a miracle.
To us, it's a miracle.
Cassie has gone from 300 seizures a month down to 15, 20 a month. She still needs them little seizures just
She
to
still
release,
has them.
you know, to release herself,
Tension.
her tension in herself, and to not get that cannabis oil. It's just.
It's unimaginable.
just-
It can't happen.
It can't happen. We'll have to.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. We have to.
We'll do it, whatever
How much
it
does
takes.
it cost?
It costs €2,135 for a 3-month prescription. And then we have to get a plane. We have to drive from here to Cork, which is 100 kilometres, get a plane to Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. Then we have to get on a train and go another 60 kilometres down to The Hague. Then we have to get on a tram and go another few kilometres. It's a suburb. Transvaal is a suburb, like for Safe Tram or to Waterford. And then collect the oil and then do a return journey. So altogether it costs us $3,000 every 3 months.
And the HSE, the big issue about this is that it's not funded.
Yeah. I don't know if I was naive or what. On the licence, it states you must have your receipts in no later than 5 days from when you receive your drugs. To me, that meant get the receipts in quick now or you won't get your refund. Right? So, the first one we saved up the money and we went and got it. So I was handing in everything they asked for. They had asked for, they wanted credentials from who was making it in Holland. They wanted lists of ingredients that were in it. I got all the information from Holland. I had it translated from English to Dutch, from Dutch to English, and sent it by registered post to the HSE in Dublin. I'd done every single thing they'd asked me for.
Receipts and everything.
But the second prescription became due And I said to John, sure, look, we'll take out a loan, and when I get the refund, we'll pay it back.
Yeah,
we'll pay it off.
Yeah.
So we took out the loan, and because the savings were gone at this stage.
From the first trip.
Yeah, so then we went off and we got our second lot. Right. So this day last Monday, I got the letter saying that I don't really understand what it meant. It's not underpinned by the rigours of a licence, so therefore we cannot refund. I don't know what that means. Right. And this is what I've been asking all along. Tell me specifically why Cassie is not having the refund and another 3 families did. Did I fill out a form wrong? Do you need another little bit of information? You know, tell me specifically why, and then I'll try and fix it. Right? No answer. It's
no
just
reply.
Silence. No. I've been sending emails, nothing. So I don't know why we've been refused. I actually don't know why. You know, if same as you put in an application for anywhere, they might send it back and say, yeah, you filled in that bit wrong.
Would you like Simon Harris to spend 24 hours with you?
Absolutely.
Sorry,
I would.
I don't mean to be.
I would, John.
I'd love to see. I would love to see him to come and spend 24 hours with us.
Yeah, I have nothing personally
It's not
against
just
these
us.
men.
What other people other families have to go through. Like
we've been contacted a lot now since I came public.
Like other families had to contact us that didn't know how to go about what we're going through now this week. They want to come on board. So
I was up in New Ross. I did a story on this last summer about another family in New Ross, the same situation, little boy, and the effect that the medicinal cannabis oil has is phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
And again,
Damien, there's no word. You can't describe. Like Cassie, as Mary said earlier, have a little attitude.
I love to see it.
No, she
has an attitude. She's a personality.
Yeah, she's standing out, and she's
giving out to you.
Before now, she's
Just
getting up off the chair now herself and walking towards the door. Obviously, one of us are behind
Wait, I
her.
have her both hands, right?
She's going
She didn't
in
stand
towards
in
the
50
toilet, and now we know that she wants to go and do it
It's like
herself.
someone put a light on in her head.
Day and night.
and I know you're not political people, because if you
Yeah.
were, you
No.
would have been out about this
No.
months and years
Yeah.
ago. And Gino Kenny is doing it from a perspective of, as he says, rights for people,
Oh,
for people
absolutely.
that are suffering.
Yeah.
So again, it's not a political thing there. But when Leo Varadkar didn't get up and answer the question, it just brought that wealth of anger.
I cried.
You cried.
Now, I'm a tough old broad. I had to be. I have 2 disabled children and 4 boys, and I reared them. Right, and John went to work old-fashioned, but that's the way we done it. Right, I'd be tough, and I don't know why I cried. I think it was because her name was mentioned, and it just brought it all to the forefront
28 years of
all just
anguish.
Yes,
And he
wound up like a coil.
He didn't even give us the courtesy.
Of just
Looking at
acknowledging her name.
standing up.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, he apologised. He was on the radio at the weekend, and he issued an apology.
I don't think that was an apology.
to a member of the public. I don't know which
I
member
don't
of the
think that
public.
was an apology. I wouldn't accept that as an apology. If he wanted to apologise, he should have stood up and said, look, the Stevens family, I'm sorry if I didn't acknowledge you right.
I'd accept it.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm not a bitter person.
You want the law changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This has
Yeah.
to stop.
Has to be changed.
Yeah.
Like you said, you were last year doing one, you're doing ours today. I guarantee
somebody else.
you'll be
There's
doing
others.
someone else in
There's
6 months.
Dozens of
Damien,
people
it's-
locally,
it's not-
hundreds out there.
It's not going to cost a fortune.
How much is an intensive care bed? Right.
Mm.
Okay. Cassie hasn't been hospitalised once since she started the aisle.
Not once.
Not once.
And she's
Do you know, like,
her general health is even improving. She had the flu there a couple of weeks ago. Before that,
that would knock her. She'd
she'd
up
be
intensive
gone.
care. She'd
She was
aspirated,
back
go
on
into her
her feet-
lungs.
Back on her feet after 3 days.
She was back after 3 days.
People are so good. I know you don't want charity or don't want money. There was a GoFundMe page set
Yeah.
up, and there's money going into it, and you'd feel guilty about taking it.
It's a strange feeling. You get this feeling. Oh, look, do I deserve this? There's so many poor people out there that that are in such bad situations as well.
That's because you're a proud, ordinary woman.
Now, Irish mammy.
And John, people would know you. You're
Yeah.
down at Waterford Crystal.
Yeah, yeah.
You're there, the public face,
Yeah.
and just people are so generous.
You wouldn't believe it, Tim. There's fellas passing in the road, bipping. Good luck, John. See you later. You hope everything goes okay. No,
People are kind. They are very
in the
kind.
street. You know what I mean?
And it brings up emotions for people because they can't even imagine what you're going through.
No, and I think
because we always kept it quiet, Damien. We always done our own
it
thing.
wasn't through shame or anything or keeping it quiet. It's just John went out to work and I reared the kids. Like I said, it was old fashioned, but that's the way we did it. Do you know what I mean? And they are ours, you know, and I will do my bit. All I'm asking for is the government is a measly 3,000 a year to help me keep my daughter alive. That's it. I want no more from him or no less. I don't want anything else. Just 3,000 every 3 months, and that'll keep my daughter alive and it'll keep her out of hospital. They're saying that they happen beds and they're bed blockers. I can keep my daughter out of hospital for less than $3,000 a month every 3 months. You know, that's all I want. Just refund the money. We've already gone twice already, right? Just let me go, get me oil. Look after my daughter. I hand you in the receipt, and if you refund me, I have it for the next 3 months.
Fade back into the background again.
And I'll just go back to doing what I always did. Yeah. That's all I ask of him. And if Simon Harris is watching, he's welcome to come and stay with us. And you know something? He'll see a nice family, and he'll see brothers that love their sister, and would do anything for her. You know, and he'll just see us for what we are, just a normal Irish family trying to do the best we can.
God love you. John, Mary, Stevens.
Thanks, Damien, for having us.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Click and Collect at mulliganspharmacy.com. Order online, collect in store.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Click and Collect at mulliganspharmacy.com. Order online, collect in store.
Now, welcome back to the programme. Deputy Hildegard Naughton, Fine Gael TD for Galway West South Mayo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, Deputy Naughton. You're chair of the Joint Committee on Communications, Climate Action and Environment. We're going to talk about the long-awaited Government Action Plan on climate change. You weren't able to hear it just a second ago, Deputy Naughton. We had the couple on that had a bit of controversy last week. Do you remember when Gino Kenny made a point during the Dáil and Taoiseach didn't respond adequately? He apologised at the weekend. It was about this idea of cannabis oil and getting refunds for families. Is the government going to fire ahead with changing the law, do you think, or something like that?
Well, I know that Minister Simon Harris is looking at this issue, and I know he's very concerned about it. I'm not on the Health Committee, so I can't go into the insights of exactly where that is at the moment, but I know that it is an issue that the government is taking very seriously, and the Minister for Health. I know he's met many people in relation to this issue, so I can certainly follow up in relation to where it is at the moment currently, but I just don't want to give information that may not be up to date. I
understand, and it's not right even mentioning it to you, because I didn't say before this interview that we would mention it, but it's just we've had them on for 20 minutes, and it's just horrendous just to think about what they've had to go through and the effect that cannabis oil, medicinal cannabis oil, has on their 28-year-old daughter. It's phenomenal. Anyway, climate change. Now, George Lee, he's a former Fine Gael TD, as you know. He said on 9 o'clock news last night that there's essentially nothing new in the plan that she brought out yesterday. It's an amalgam of various announcements over the past 5 years, many of which you haven't really implemented. Now, I've read the document twice now, once last night and once this morning. Many of the so-called actions are simply aspirations or proposals, Deputy Naughton, to draw up a plan or even consider drawing up a plan. What would you have to say to that?
Well, first of all, just to say one of the key recommendations, and this is the recommendation that came from the cross-party committee that I chaired, 22 members of this cross-party committee, because we needed to get cross-party consensus in relation to what this government and future governments need to do. And one of the central recommendations we had was the whole governance structure, and that is new. This will change the whole way that climate is being dealt with. So our standing committee will have the same powers of a PAC committee, the Public Accounts Committee, but it will be over climate. So part of that governance structure is where a Climate Change Advisory Council, which is chaired by Professor John Fitzgerald, that will be an independent body that will set out 5-year carbon budgets for the government. Their emissions budgets, where there will be a cap in relation to the level of emissions that every government department can generate over a 5-year period. And then that the plan will be implemented from the Taoiseach's office down, and they will be accountable to our committee. So, for example, if a particular department is not adhering or living up to the targets and timeframes set out in this all-of-government plan that was produced by Richard Bruton yesterday, we can call those government ministers, government officials into our committee, hold them to account and ask them why they haven't reached those targets and to explain themselves. And that is a fundamental shift in the way the state is dealing with climate. That's one really important recommendation.
Yes.
That is a second, if you want me to go through...
Well, let me focus on one, Deputy Norton, for example. There's numerous actions which are simply aspirations or proposals to draw up a plan, to consider drawing up a plan, or where steps are necessary, merely delivering a so-called repeated action. For example, Action 78. As an alternative to the current grant regime, consider in 2020 a car scrappage scheme to promote the purchase of electric vehicles. Steps necessary for delivery as per action. So to spell it out, the action is to consider a scheme and the steps are to consider a scheme. So there's an awful lot more like that, an awful lot of aspirational stuff within it.
Okay, in relation to that, what we want to do is to increase the uptake of people purchasing electric vehicles, and we need to look at a range of ways that you're not going to change your car tomorrow if you're running a diesel car or petrol car to an electric vehicle for a number of reasons. One, if we don't have the electric vehicle charging points established right across the country. And the ESB, we've already started that in relation to funding that to the Climate Action Fund. So the ESB are rolling out, but this needs to be ramped up, can I say? They're rolling out fast charging points right across the country. There's already a grant in place through the SEAI, the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, where people can access a grant for up to €5,000 if you're buying an electric vehicle. You can get a €600 grant to install a home charger in your home. All of these need to be ramped up to encourage people to, when you are going to replace your car, not today or tomorrow if you're not ready to do that, but over the next few years. And by 2024, 2025, the cost of buying and running an electric car will be the same as buying and running a fossil fuel car, a petrol or diesel car. So we need to, this gives us time, the government time and every single government department time to roll out the necessary measures. For example, the electric charging points, increase the number of grants. That's the same right across the board through, for example, our buildings, to retrofitting our homes. We need to increase the level of...
Can I pause you there for 1 second, Deputy Norton? We'll talk about the retrofitting in a second. Let's ask a specific question, look for a specific answer. Essentially, the market is going to decide on the price of electric cars, OK? Electric cars are massively expensive at the minute. 5,000 won't necessarily need it at the minute. Car dealers are going to make a heap of money out of this because ordinary people will again be saddled with the burden. So as you say, there's currently grants, 5,000, there's VRT rebates for electric cars. But this can't continue because you won't be able to afford to pay for it. Because again, somebody has to pay for it. It's going to be the car owners that are going to have to pay for it.
Yes, so for example, just to answer that in relation to the cost of it, the cost of owning an electric vehicle, they're falling all the time, which means that over time, over the next few years, the cost of batteries will reduce. But not everybody will be making that transition to electric vehicle. For some people, they will be able to do that through the grant system. They may have their own finance and they just want that extra bit of assistance through the grant scheme.
Okay.
But this is only part of the solution, can I say. We're also looking at investment in public transport, in our rolling out Bus Connect.
I understand, and okay, let's focus on that now in a second. So many rural people need diesel vehicles to cover long distances. You're from a rural constituency, okay? There's no way you're going to offset that with enough public transport. So if you have, for example, a large SUV that you have to pull trailers with it, if you have to get an electric one, you could be looking at 80,000. Over time, there's going to be a dramatic cost. I'm suggesting the government won't have enough money to grant aid all the people that you want to get electric vehicles. So effectively, the burden is going to fall back on the consumer, middle class and working class people.
So, yes, you're correct in that the government won't be able to fund everything, and that's why we need to come up with smart financing models and low-cost loans. And you mentioned the scrappage scheme there earlier at the outset of this interview. So these are a range of ways that we need to help people make that transition over the next few years. In relation to rural Ireland and, for example, agriculture, and I'm sure you've many farmers listening in saying that their tractors... They're tractors. We don't have electric tractors, and we need to ensure that we are protecting the different sectors who are going to find this transition hardest. And that's why, as part of, and you might think I'm moving on to a separate area, but it is rural Ireland, that first of all, the Minister Pascal Donoghue is having a public consultation at the moment in relation to the price on carbon and the revenue generated through that increase in carbon. What that would be used for? Would it be for ring fence? What do people want it used for?
Yes.
Do they want it reinvested, for example, into the areas that you've just highlighted there, into those challenges? Do they want it to go into retrofitting of homes? Obviously we need to protect those who are facing fuel poverty, those people who are not going to be able to make that transition. For example, increasing the fuel allowance, increasing people's benefits through social welfare. We need to make sure that this is done in a fair way, and that is why this consultation is up and running. And I have to say, it is not going to be easy, Damien. I don't want to come across like this is all going to happen tomorrow and we can all make the switch. That's not what I'm saying.
We understand that, and
over a few years, and it's every single sector.
Yeah.
And the government needs to lead on this. Be it transport department, the agriculture department of agriculture, department of housing, everyone right across the sector needs to work over the next 10 years to help people make that transition through support, through helping people finance it and protecting those who are most vulnerable.
Let's talk again specifics, Deputy Naughton, because I've seen a lot of these plans over the years, and the best way of dealing with it is look for specific points, specific answers to specific questions. So you mentioned earlier about charge points for cars. Now, are you going to put charging points in enough places in rural Ireland, as I say, that's going to be able to help people that don't have the facility for public transport? If it's in Mayo, if it's in West Waterford, if it's in South Kilkenny, wherever it's going to be. Like, why should ordinary people out there believe the government when you can't even get broadband for rural Ireland? Like, Air is not going to meet its most recent targets. Like, you're talking about banning the fitting of new oil boilers in 2.5 years' time. Can I just play a tiny little clip of an oil delivery firm, John and Mary Hutchinson, out in Crook? And this is just a tiny clip of them. What should the government be doing now, we'd say, for the next 10 years to try and help people like yourselves?
It'll have to be grants, won't it?
Like, you've built up the business.
It'll have to be grants for people, like for something. I don't know what they should be doing. Do you, John?
What about yourselves? Like, you've built up the business over the years.
And I suppose we could be gone in the next 10 years. That's the only way I've been looking at it. We don't know. It's not going to matter to us because we're too old now, aren't we, John?
Yeah, but for anybody coming along, when you build
for the younger generation,
when you build a business up,
they're like a garden now.
Yeah, but it's going to be unfair because they're all going to be out of work, and they wouldn't know any other job, and they're getting on a bit in life. It's going to be where they're going to get a job.
What do you have to say, Deputy Naughton, to the Hutchinson family that have 5 people employed in an oil delivery business that are facing down the barrel of a gun and looking at their business being decimated over the next few years?
Okay, you mentioned a number of issues there, even in advance of that, but I'll take that issue there first. In relation to making this transition, number one, this is going to happen over a number of years, and we in our cross-party committee put a huge emphasis in what we call the just transition and helping people in employment, people who are currently in businesses who are very fossil fuel dependent, and in honing in on what their skills are and trying to upskill them. For example, I'll give you the example of Bord Namona, which is, as we know, highly fossil fuel intensive, where there has already been works underway in relation to identifying the skills of those workers and trying to get them to retrain in the area of renewables and retrofitting. This is going to be the future. And again, it's not happening this year or next year, but we need to make sure that we identify those industries that are going to be most at risk, look at the skills that currently exist within these industries, see how we can upskill them and how we can help them over the few years ahead. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can start planning to help them make that transition, because our future is going to be in the renewable industry. We're looking at... It's going to happen very quickly, because you're getting rid of oil boilers in 2.5 years' time. New oil boilers are going in 2.5 years' time. From 2.5 years' time, there will be no more oil boilers fitted in this country. And this is, as I say, we are looking at generating electricity from renewable sources. Up to 70% of our electricity will have to come from renewable sources by the year 2030. That's giving us a 10, 11-year window to get there. And we need to protect. I think your issue there and the concerns there were around the workers, the workforce. And again, it's about helping people make that transition to start upskilling in the area of renewables, like Borden Namona is doing that. They have done this. This is a tried and tested industry. Yes, it's going to be challenging. The same has to be done in Money Point in relation to the phasing out of fossil fuels. That is where we have to go if we are to reach our 2030 targets. We're way off our 2020 targets.
We are.
We're seen as a laggard, and we've been accused of acting fast enough in relation to this. That's why we needed the cross-party support. But we have to do it fairly, and we have to bring people with us and engage with people.
Okay.
And part of that process in relation to the workforce, just to go back to that, and this just transition, is to ensure that you have our key agencies like the IDA, Enterprise Ireland, the local enterprise offices within local authorities who are identifying these industries within their own regions, within their own areas, identifying them early, not when the horse is bolted, and helping them make that transition to upskill them. And part of that will be our Solace agency, our ETBs across the country, our technological universities, all of these agencies. And this is an all of government, all of society approach. And yes, it is ambitious, and I'm not saying that it is easy, but this is the plan that will help us get us there.
Okay,
that's why we need to bring people with us.
Yes, very, very important, Deputy Norton, because if you don't bring people with you, you are going to have trouble in this country. The urban-rural divide is going to increase. It's grand to get a small electric car up in Dublin. To get a big SUV electric vehicle down in West Mayo is not as easy. You mentioned retrofitting houses, right? Can I just on this? You mentioned
the whole issue of charging points needs to be ramped up.
It needs to be okay.
That applies as well in rural Ireland.
I know you have to go in a second. So retrofitting houses, a deep retrofit for a house is currently 80,000. Now, between grant aid and between tax incentives, the government is giving around 40,000. These prices, I can guarantee you, Deputy Norton, are going to go up because builders are going to make more profits on this over the coming years. How can you ask people to take on an extra 40,000 in debt, at least, onto their mortgages to retrofit a house? How can you ask a family to do that with heavy mortgages?
We're not.
You are, because it's 40,000. The net cost at the minute for a retrofit is 40,000.
If you allow me to answer the question, first of all, there's already grants out there for people who are facing, for example, who are on the fuel allowance, who are facing energy poverty. There's the Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme, and that delivers a range of energy efficient...
Middle-class people that are not on the fuel allowance. Middle-class, ordinary people.
Okay, I'll get to them now. I'll get to them after. I just want to answer your first question first. So they're delivered at the moment free of charge. That's the Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme through the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. Then, for people who are outside that bracket, and these are, before I even explain it, need to be ramped up. We need to increase these supports and incentives there. The Better Energy Home Scheme, that provides for financial supports, typically covering about 30% of the cost of work for private homeowners who want to retrofit their home. That's through insulating their roofs, their walls, their attic, for example. We also have sustainable energy communities. Now, these are going to be key right across Ireland. These are the key influencers. They're mainly voluntary groups who are interested in reducing energy within communities, and they are looking at upgrading a mix of projects, homes, community facilities, businesses. We're also looking at grouping houses together so that one contractor could retrofit a bundle of homes together in one area, and therefore you have economies of scale, and that would reduce it. But in relation to how...
A lot of rural houses are on their own.
In relation to how you finance it, we're looking at smart financing such as low-cost, low-interest loans, and we need to increase the availability and access to information for people through the local authorities. At the moment, a lot of people do not know the grants that are available, and we need to improve the information channels, and that it has to be done as well through the local authorities. And the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland is a really good resource for people who want to retrofit their homes and who want assistance in doing that. And we as government need to continue to help them and improve the grants and the supports in order to do that.
One of the specific questions, again, from this document, 183 action points, inverted commas, effectively doubling the amount of wind farms on land. Would you live beside a wind farm, Deputy Norton, or would you object to a wind farm if there was one going to be built beside you?
Well, there is a wind farm in Galway where I live.
There is. I was looking at the Google this morning, but it's not right beside you. Answer that specific question. Would you live beside a wind farm or object to one?
Yes, no, I wouldn't. But Damien, can I just say in relation to that?
You wouldn't live beside a wind farm.
The line of questioning is fine, and we all understand the challenges in relation to wind farms. But there are other renewable sources as well within this plan, such as offshore wind energy and solar energy, which has not been, especially offshore wind energy, it has been untapped because of the lack of clear regulations around that, and that is a clear ask.
I agree with you 100%, Deputy Norton, but the plan indicates that there will be a doubling of the amount of on-land wind farms. So this is going to affect.
Is communities who have ownership of those wind farms. There are communities, and I made reference to the sustainable energy communities, who can have their own wind generators and solar panels, and they can generate their own electricity, and at the moment they cannot sell it back into the grid, and this will empower local communities. If we're asking for people to make this transition, they need to be able to do that and lower their own.
And how can you ask people
generating their own electricity and feeding it back, selling it back onto the grid? And that is a way. That is on land wind energy.
And how can you ask people to buy into that if you just said yourself that you wouldn't live beside a wind farm?
I didn't say that. Damien. I think you need to go back and.
Did you say? So you would live beside a wind farm? You'd have no problem.
I acknowledge the challenges. I said I acknowledge. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I said I acknowledge the challenges that have been there in relation to wind turbines, and we need to make sure that the policy that we have brings communities with us, that we work with them, and part of that will be local communities generating their own renewable energy and electricity through solar power as well as wind, and being able to use that electricity to energise their own homes and businesses and communities, and also to sell it back into the grid. At the moment, microgeneration is, I suppose, one of the areas within this report, which puts a huge emphasis on community ownership of renewable energy projects, and that's something that we have not done very well in this country, and I'll be the first to acknowledge that, and we need that as part of the solution in reaching our 70% renewable electricity generation by 2030. There is lots of opportunities here within this plan, lots of health benefits as well, having cleaner homes, warmer homes, cleaner air in our homes, cleaner air in our cities, and it's not going to happen overnight. This is a rolling document, and it's going to change as new technologies come on board, and we need to bring communities and people with us, but it needs to be led by all of government departments, and that's why the oversight in relation to this plan is going to be key in making sure that we do reach those targets and we protect the environment and the climate for the future generations. That's what this is all about.
Deputy Norton, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You got that power over me.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Welcome back to the programme. A lot of people saying that the interview with John and Mary, their heart goes out to them, and they want to support them in any way they can. Regarding the interview with Deputy Norton, Damien, what planet are some of these politicians on? How are working class or middle class people going to afford any of this, even with a 20% grant? We're going to talk to Philip Nolan now. Philip, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Philip, columnist with the Irish Daily Mail. Thank you for joining us this morning. The fascinating case of Majella Moynihan. It sounds like something you'd read in a book, and the idea that it's a fascinating case. But as people know, Majella Moynihan is a real person. She's the former Garda who received an apology in recent days from Garda Commissioner Drew Harris after she was threatened with disciplinary action from the Guards after having premarital sex in the 1980s with another Garda recruit and giving birth outside of wedlock. What's your take on all of this?
Well, you know something, it kind of reminds us, and I think sometimes we get complacent in those of us who are of an age, actually like our New Ireland so much, we forget where we came from. But this case happened Majella got pregnant in 1983 and gave birth in 1984, and it was the same era as the pro-life amendment, the so-called pro-life amendment. It was the same era as Eileen Flynn and 30 Babies and Anne Lovett, a child who died in Grotto in Granard. And it was not a very good country for women, and arguably it still isn't in many ways. But at the time, we had, if you like, a kind of a moral police, the old person twitching, body the squinting windows. And, it's hard to understand it, I think, for young people nowadays, but it really was grim.
And do you think, like I've read other articles about this during the week as well, that in the 1980s, this wouldn't have been an isolated case? We've heard of other guards that have come forward that have been questioned because of their homosexuality at the time. So we were talking about a different time. Is that in any way to excuse what happened?
No, it doesn't excuse it. But that said and done, it explains it, I think is the best way of putting it. Yes, we've heard that, and we've also heard in the past couple of days of people who were nurses, and one nurse in particular who was told that if she continued with her pregnancy and had her baby and kept her baby, that her nursing career was over, and that indeed is what transpired. Whereas she pointed out that some other nurses who she knew on the same training course had actually had abortions, but the nuns took no action against them, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever if you have, the full moral kind of code at your disposal. So yes, I mean, it has changed, obviously, and, there are some complaints at the moment. There are 2 Garda cars that have been decorated in the Pride colours for the Pride Parade in Dublin next weekend, and guards will march in the Pride Parade for the first time. And I know that now there are serious questions being asked as to whether or not that's appropriate, given the historical way that Gardaí dealt with people of different sexualities.
Yeah, and that is a major thing. Like, I was on to the Garda division in Waterford here just yesterday to see if there would be somebody locally to talk about that. And again, it's a new sort of aspect, because the Garda, one of the head guards, said to me, not sure how to ask somebody, like, do you ask one of the members of the force, would they come on the radio and talk about it? So we're going to go through the press office on this. So there are a lot of organisations that are just learning to deal with institutionalised, I suppose, discrimination that went on in the past.
Yes, and I think, any major company nowadays would definitely have a diversity program in place as part of, the HR department, because people of all different, people who identify in all different ways in terms of gender and sexuality are present in every workplace. And also people, who are single with children, who are married with children, who have adopted children. We have to deal with people on an individual basis. And Ireland is better. There's no doubt about that. It is a better country now than it was then. Anybody who tells you that, we had it great back in the 80s, we genuinely didn't. And I say that as a man. As a woman, it was miserable.
Was there anything good about it?
Yeah, well, there was. I mean, in fairness, the one thing I would say that was great about it was that because nobody had anything, we didn't miss anything, if you know what I mean.
We were all poor together.
Yeah, but the one thing I do, like, when you look at Reeling in the years, the one thing that always makes me laugh is all we did was we just wore brown and black. It was very, very grim. My memories of Ireland are like black and white. It wasn't a colourful country. And I love the diversity that we have in Ireland at the moment. And I feel so sorry for people like Majella Moynihan. But it's really important that she tells her story, because sometimes I think for people who are maybe, 20 years, I'm in my mid-50s now, for people who are maybe 20, 25 years younger than me, they actually just don't realise how bad it was. And I know every generation says that. I'm sure it was bad 25 years before I was born. But nonetheless, we need to remind ourselves where we were and how far we've come. And I think we're doing pretty well at the moment.
Philip Nolan, columnist with the Irish Daily Mail, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It was a pleasure.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tremore.
Welcome back to the programme. A lot of reaction to the interview with Deputy Norton. Hello, Damien. What will householders do who already have mass concrete damp houses with central heating? Oil will be gone, have no cavities to pump foam. We cannot underpin the house. The only fuel we have is oil and one fireplace, which heats just one room. We've 2 diesel vehicles and a diesel digger. What are we going to do? from a concerned Waterfodian. That's a very, very good point. Another texter, people have been texting in to say that the line of questioning was 100% right. Frank said, Dame, you need to listen to people before you jump down the throat. You're just desperate to get a headline. Let people answer the questions without interruption, for God's sake. Again, on that, Frank, I asked specific questions. I felt I gave Deputy Naughton a lot of time to answer her questions. I did listen to specifically what she was saying. She then came back to me, for example, regarding wind farms, and she said that she didn't say that she wouldn't live beside a wind farm. This is exactly what was said. Would you live beside a wind farm, Deputy Naughton, or would you object to a wind farm if there was one going to be built beside you?
Well, there is a wind farm in Galway where I live.
There is. I was looking at the Google this morning, but it's not right beside you. Answer that specific question. Would you live beside a wind farm or object to one?
Yes, no, I wouldn't. But Damien, can I just say in relation to that?
You wouldn't live beside a wind farm.
The line of questioning is it's fine, and we all understand the challenges in relation to wind farms. But there are other renewable sources as well within this plan, such as offshore wind energy and solar energy, which has not been, especially offshore wind energy, it has been untapped because of the lack of clear regulations around that, and that is a clear ask.
I agree with you 100%, Deputy Naughton, but the plan indicates that there will be a doubling of the amount of on-land wind farms. And that is the plan, that is the government plan. So whatever about offshore wind farms, which are more expensive to construct, the plan as I can see it and as other commentators can see it is that there will be an increase, a doubling of wind farms. So the specific thing comes into mind, would you, as a rural dweller, live beside a wind farm? Because these wind farms are not going to be built near towns or villages. They may be close to villages, but they'll be so far enough away to minimise the number of people that are going to object. So there will be one-off houses within line of sight, within the sound area of wind farms, and we have that whole issue of the wind farm controversy that is going to continue and is going to get worse, because there will be more wind farms being proposed. The government says that it's now part of their plan to effectively double the number of wind farms in this country, and that's just the on-land wind farms. Never mind about the offshore wind farms. I don't think people have a problem with offshore wind farms. Obviously, fishermen and some people with sites over bays and stuff like that may have issues. Damien, some people live in cloud cuckoo land. If I need to get a bus, I have to walk 7 miles. I live in a 70-year-old house with solid walls. I have dry lined, no good. I can't afford to do any more to my home. Not everyone lives in Dublin, and not everyone has their wages. So mad. So it's going to be very difficult for ordinary people, said this person. Damien, has your speaker seen how electric cars are made? China is destroying big parts of Africa, then ship the raw materials to China. When it is processed and turned into car battery by factory, they are run on oil or coal. Some of our politicians must think we are making money ourselves. No working class family will be able to pay for the upgrading of our houses or the newfangled electric cars and grants. You have to pay out first to get them. We don't have the money. They have squeezed all of it out of us already. Where would I get public transport in rural Ireland, says another person. It's not easy to get that. You also have the issues of carbon taxes. Like, we didn't get into it fully there. Carbon taxes are going to go up dramatically. They're going to hit middle class and working class people most, because petrol and diesel, like, we're not talking about this happening slowly. This is going to happen in November. Petrol and diesel is going to go up in November. Coal, blocks, briquettes is going to go up. If you're on allowances, you may get some allowance for that, but gas and oil is going to go up as well. A lot of people don't get allowances for that. There'll be no extra grant for people. Hauliers are going to be affected. So we are looking at increases coming down the line in November. Is that something that we should pay for? Is that something that it's worth to save the environment? We'll talk about that more after 11. First, here's Liz with the news.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Welcome back to the programme. A lot of people texting in 083 333 975. We're going to be talking to Willie now about humanist ceremonies. So if you want to text in about that, please do. Or you can call Laura on 051 846 123. 051 846 123. Text or WhatsApp. Some of your texters regarding John and Mary Stevens earlier on and their daughter Cassie. It's embarrassing the way people are treated. These two fantastic parents fighting for their daughter. Why should they have to? They've dedicated their life to their child. Others saying that it's very sad to hear their case and to hear how they are. Others talking about the cost of electric cars. All the issues regarding climate change. So it's going to be a major issue. Willie says he knows someone who has an new electric BMW, and the replacement of the battery is 25,000 in 5 years' time. Electric sounds cheap, but that's £100 a week. One of the big issues regarding electric is the batteries. Until they're able to get a battery that lasts for ages, then there are going to be problems with that. Just before I come to you, Willie, Déise says, speaking about the climate, he's a retiring farmer. He's 80 acres of land. He wanted to do something environmentally friendly. He said he'd ring Sustainable Energy Ireland, etc. And on a Tuesday morning, he made 9 calls trying to figure out what he could do with his land now that he's planning to retire. They couldn't offer any advice, and he ended up back with the first crowd with no answers. He was told if he got more cows, he could get more grants. Mental, that's what he says. What do you think of that, Willie? It's funny, isn't it? It's funny if it wasn't so serious. Like, you have all these announcements by the government and all these different bodies, and yet when it comes to practical things, and there's a man who's phoned in especially to tell his story about that. Willie Collins, humanist celebrant. There's been a massive growth in humanist ceremonies for weddings, funerals and naming ceremonies for babies. What is humanism?
I suppose it's a belief in science rather than in faith. It's simply that I suppose look for evidence rather than believing in something on the basis of faith.
Can you have religion without God?
Well, if you may not call it, sometimes people think that spirituality or feeling good is the domain of religion, and I think there is a spiritual experience that people can have without religion, of course. Okay, so are some humanists religious people? I don't think that they go hand in hand.
No, but that's not the question I asked. Yeah. But are they religious in the sense that would they be spiritual?
They would be spiritual, I think, yes, but not religious.
Okay, well then how can you call yourself a humanist if you're spiritual and yet you believe in the central tenets of science?
I suppose if you follow Tipperary hurling, that you can have a spiritual experience,
And you never mentioned Waterford hurling, because you were living in Care and you're a Care man, a Tip man, so thanks very much for not mentioning that.
You can have a spiritual experience out of lots of things without necessarily being religious.
On a serious note now, we had Bishop Cullinan in last week, and I asked the same type of questions about not having a religion or having religion without God. So you cannot necessarily have a spiritualism if you believe in the central tenets of science, that the world is rationally based and that there's nothing, inverted commas, spiritual about the world.
Well, it depends on what you mean by spiritual. You see, a spiritual experience is a feeling good about oneself. And you can have a good feeling about yourself out of lots of things. Out of doing good for other people, you can feel good about yourself. So a spiritual awakening is not always about a religious experience, but it can be about lots of things. I worked in the addiction field for over 30 years, and having a spiritual experience because of doing the right thing, say for people in recovery, it's not always a religious experience. It can be by living a decent life, by being good.
Yes. And that we covered that last week with the Bishop, the metaphysics of naturalism and all that's related to that, and rationalism versus religion. Are you suggesting that there can be some sort of a correlation between rationalism and religion, or spiritualism?
Well, I think people can have a spiritual experience without it having anything to do with religion. I think a spiritual experience is not always sort of with a vertical dimension to it. It can have it can be in the company of somebody else can be a spiritual experience, a feeling good about oneself, and that's not something that's tangible, let's say.
And how do you rationalise that then as a humanist?
Well, I don't think that you have to necessarily think that. Sometimes people think that if you don't have religion, that you have nothing, that you have an emptiness. And in actual fact, you don't. It isn't an emptiness. It's a feeling of quite fulfilled life, because you do things because it's the right thing to do, because you feel right about doing something, not because you're going to get brownie points in another life, you know.
Did you ever believe in God?
At one time, I suppose, I was an altar boy, and I was, you know, and so
was
on.
I.
But I suppose, you know, I became, I suppose, more sceptical about you know, the possibilities.
At
of
what age?
Well, I suppose in my teens, you know, my early teens. And
have you? Do you feel? How do you feel about people that have a faith in God?
I've absolutely no problem with people that have a faith in God, because that's their belief. It's just something that I don't believe in myself, and I'm not anti-religion.
Are you?
Sometimes people ask that, you know, when people come to me about getting married, you know, that they have family, that maybe grandmother, parents, or whatever, that have a religious belief. Is the ceremony in any way anti-religion? No, absolutely not at all. I have friends that have deep faith, and I don't try and contradict them, or I don't try and argue with them about it.
Has the Humanist Project, though, both here and internationally, been in some way set out to undermine religion?
Well, absolutely not.
Either as a political force or as a social force?
No, not humanism is not. And sometimes people think that all humanists have an agenda, an atheist agenda, and they don't.
Have they an agnostic agenda, some of them?
Well, I suppose they don't have an agenda to change anybody, other than to sort of look for equality or look for the rights for people who do not have faith. Like, we don't realise in Ireland how dominated we are by sort of religious practices, because like for years and years, like Ireland was 99% Catholic.
So by saying that effectively, Willie, though, you're being critical of religion as a political force. So I know you're not undermining religion as a moral force, but there's criticism there within that comment.
Well, there's criticism, I suppose, in a sense that I suppose humanists don't want to change other people, and other people, they don't want to be changed by other people. So to give people the right to be themselves, the right to be a non-believer equally as much, and to have equality as a non-believer with the person who has a belief in a next life and so on.
Would you ever get jealous of somebody who has faith?
Sometimes, you know, it's nice for people who think that there's somebody, you know, it's like having the parent at home that will kind of look after it if all goes wrong. And you don't have that, you know, and I suppose there is a certain envy when you see people sort of saying, oh, it'll be all right because God is good or whatever. And in a certain sense, that is... that's a comfort for people, and that's a comfort that I don't particularly have or believe in.
What happens if you're wrong? What happens when you die, and if it happens that there is a God and that you have to face Judgment Day?
I think, quite honestly, if that is the case, I would live my life in a just and honest way, and I don't think that you can be punished for your lack of faith, but you might be, if there is a next life, I think you might be punished for your behaviour or for your lack of honesty or whatever. So, like, I suppose it's to live a decent life and to do the right thing for people when you're asked, or when you see an opportunity to try and help another human being, which is and be good to animals and good to the environment, and, you know, so as best we can.
What does a humanist burial entail?
A celebration of a person's life. And people sometimes ask me about, you know, at funerals, you know, does the person live on? And I say, of course they live on. They live on in the memories of the people that they leave behind. And like I've had my own family, all of my family of origin have passed on, but they live on in my memory and in the memory of their friends. And when I meet, you know, relatives and friends and so on, and we talk about people who are passed. And just only yesterday, my brother, who was deceased deceased now for 16 years. A friend of his called me yesterday, and we spoke about him. So he does live on, in that way. But I don't think that he said to me before he died. He said if there is anything out there, he was a little bit like me. He said if there's anything out there, he said I'll let you know, and I haven't had a call yet.
What's the meaning of life?
I suppose is to spend time with family, quality time, and appreciate where you are. Appreciate sort of the moment, live in the moment, just to sort of say today is, as I drive down here today, it's just to sort of enjoy the weather and enjoy the sunshine, and not to be racing and pushing people out of your way, but it's to sort of appreciate what you're doing at the particular time.
So in a way, you come across to me as a deep thinker, as a philosophical man who has a spiritual soul. But yet, you deny the existence of a soul. You deny the existence of God.
Well, I think that
are you an atheist or an agnostic?
I suppose I'm probably I suppose I'm atheist in the technical sense, but I'm not a member of it. I don't like.
You're an atheist on the ditch.
I don't like the adversarial type of approach that some people within the atheist community take. I'm not adversarial. I like to respect other people's views. I like to respect where people are coming from. I don't want to be critical. I have sat down with bishops and with priests and with religious people. I worked with religious people for years and years, and I don't have any difficulty with their faith. I sometimes wonder at people with high levels of intelligence, with the level of sort of blind faith that they have. But I don't criticise them. I accept that that's the way they are. So, am I? You see, I think that spirituality should not necessarily be the domain of religion only. The spirituality, as I said, if you follow sport or if you play music or all of those sort of things, give people a spiritual experience. And I think that people have to acknowledge that. Sometimes people think that you can't have spirituality without religion. You certainly can, as far as I'm concerned.
I know a lot of Tip fans, when they see Seamus Callanan put the ball in the net, yes, they feel a spiritual experience.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right.
Willie Collins, thank you so much. People can contact you through the Humanist Association of Ireland.
Yes.
And as we say, there's been a big increase in humanist weddings, funerals and naming ceremonies for babies. A naming ceremony for a baby then is it's not like a christening, it's just a naming ceremony.
It's a welcoming of the child into the family and into the world. And it's when people bond together, and we do things like, say, involve the grandparents, involve the parents, and involve uncles and aunts and so on.
Would you be a type of person then to campaign for the removal of crucifixes from churches or schools?
No, absolutely not. Now, some people find them offensive, and I don't, because I acknowledge that there are a vast number of people in Ireland who are of religious faith. No more than, I don't particularly want them to come and tell me I can't do this or I can't do that. And I've had priests and nuns at ceremonies that have done wedding ceremonies, and they've all complimented on how inclusive the ceremony is of them and other people.
Willie, thanks very much.
Thanks, Damien.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
Thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Mulligan's, we are closer to you.
You can make it soul, make it real, make it rock, make it blues, make it bounce, make it hip hop.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Click and Collect at mulliganspharmacy.com. Order online, collect in store.
Now, welcome back to the programme. Keep your texts and your comments coming in. We're joined now by Vivian Burns and we're joined by Paula Dalton. Vivian, there's a new review taking place of the payments for the domiciliary allowance for parents of children requiring ongoing care and attention. This may also apply to people that have autistic children. What does this entail? What's this about?
Well, this is a monthly payment, as you just said, paid to parents of children who require significant care needs of children of the same age. So we are talking about children who may have epilepsy, cancer, children who are autistic. So reviews for this payment have been on hold since 2012, and now the Department of Social Protection has decided that the reviews are about to begin again. This allowance is horrific to apply for. it's a harrowing experience for parents, and that's what I'm hearing all the time, because you are listing, all the negatives about your child, all the things that your child can't do, and I'm aware of parents who've taken up to 2 months to fill out this form. And,
Is it a big form?
It is pretty thorough. Because you are listing all the care needs that you do for your child and all the things that your child can't do. And I just think that, again, we're at a case where we're targeting the vulnerable in society. Why are parents who already are, stressed looking after children with significant care needs going to be reviewed again?
So the Domiciliary Care Allowance, DCA, it's a monthly payment for a child aged under 16 with a severe disability, inverted commas, who requires ongoing care and attention, substantially over and above the care and attention usually acquired by a child of the same age. Paula, from the Williamstown area here, Paula Dalton, tell us about your own situation.
I have 2 boys with autism, and they have, some of their needs are similar, some are quite different. My older son has a lot of medical needs, and it's extremely expensive because we have to go private for everything because the waiting lists are up to 4 years long. He can't wait and paying for 4 years. Both my son's domiciliary goes on just paying for his medical needs. Then you've got this little boy, and he needs speech therapy, occupational therapy. He needs play therapy because he was struggling, and they're quite expensive. And my older son, he's to see rheumatologists, he's to have lots of different tests done. It's extremely expensive. We've a very busy life. We've a very busy household. I've had to come out of work. I didn't have a choice in the end. My partner continues to work, but even at that, sometimes he has to take days off at his own expense, even just to help get to all the different appointments, because you're not going to cancel an appointment because they're so few and far between. So a lot of our appointments are private, and we don't want to cancel them because we need them for the children. It's a very hard life in some ways. It's always checking the diary, where you need to be, if they're having meltdowns, what you need to do. It's continuous going. It's very busy.
What Vivian has to say, a review is taking place. This has been on hold of the payments since 2012. What would you like to see done?
Well, as Vivian was saying, it's a very long, stressful process for any parent. I just think, situations where, a child has autism, Down syndrome, their lifelong conditions, is it really fair to review these situations? They don't go away. I would love to hear they go away, but they don't go away. For me, it'll be really hard even to have the time to review this. I know they're given a 5-month time frame to get what you need in order, but it's just what you need to get in order can take a long time to put together. I don't think it's a very fair process. Most people that apply for, everyone that applies for this really needs it. I'm lucky. In one sense, I've my partner, he's able to help out. As some people, and they're in a situation like me, and they may not have another person to help them, and this is helping them keep going. This is giving their children what they need. It's a lifeline.
Vivian, you ran in the local election. It was one of the issues that you raised. What needs to be done on this? What specifically needs to be done now by politicians, by anybody who's aware of this situation?
What I find with this government is they seem to make decisions without actually speaking to the people that it affects. And, the domiciliary allowance is being used by parents to pay for private speech therapy and occupational therapy because the waiting lists are so long, in some cases up to 5 years. If you notice that there are differences in your child when they're 2 years of age, and your child is suffering extreme issues due to sensory needs, and they need occupational therapy, and they need to go for an assessment, it's an absolute disgrace that a child has to wait up to 5 years to be assessed for autism, because early intervention is vital. Now, the government did put out a fund of 700,000 for extra speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, and that was for the South East. Waterford didn't get one extra post, and they also were to give 100,000 to outsource children to be assessed privately, and they withdrew the funding for that. So, like we're looking at the Children's Hospital, 1.6 billion, and yet now they're trying to claw money back from the most vulnerable again. So I just think it's an absolute disgrace that parents have to pay privately for everything, and we need more occupational therapists and speech therapists in Waterford.
Paula, how does it make you feel?
I'm angry, I'm disappointed. I feel it's always the most vulnerable in society have to pay for our government's mistakes. And they are mistakes made by them continuously. I don't feel there's enough resources, there's enough of anything to help these children, and all any parent here wants is to give their child the best start in life, give their children what they need to make their life as healthy, comfortable as possible, and help them to socialise and interact and get the best out of life. And it's just another area where it'll stop this happening for people, for children, vulnerable children.
Vivian, thanks for raising this.
No problem.
I hope you have success with the campaign. Paula, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Both of you, and we'll return to this now in a few weeks' time. We'll definitely come back to it, and we'll see if we can do something more on it. Promise you that, okay?
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
Thanks to Mulligan's. Blue Club rewards from mulliganspharmacy.com. Spend a little to earn a lot.
Every time I think I'm falling, I know you're falling too. There's no doubt you're rolling.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You got that power over me.
Now, welcome back to the programme. We're joined by Anne Scully, proprietor of The Dresser on Georgia Street. How are you, Anne?
I'm great, Damien. How are you?
Good to see you again. Anne-Marie Veal, manager of the Pine Grove Daycare Centre on the Passage Road. How are you?
How are you?
Good, thanks, good. There's a pop-up shop being opened this weekend in aid of Pine Grove. Tell us about it.
Well, Damien, Pine Grove is the Alzheimer's Centre here in Waterford, and we're opening a pop-up shop on Friday and Saturday to raise some funds for it. They do fantastic work for people suffering from dementia. And I suppose because it's hard to raise money sometimes, I was cleaning out my wardrobe and I said, God, what could I do, with all these stuff? And I said, maybe, if I had a pop-up shop and other people would give us things as well. And whatever we raise, isn't it better than sending the clothes to the clothes bank or something like that? So that's where it started. So we're doing it on Friday and Saturday for 2 days.
That sounds excellent. Tell us a little bit a bit more about it, Anne-Marie.
About the pop-up or Pine Grove, which would you prefer?
Pine Grove.
Pine Grove. So Pine Grove's run by the Alzheimer's Society. We have a daycare centre on the Passage Road. We take up to 20 people on a given day who have a diagnosis of dementia. It's a social centre, so people come in just to have a nice social experience, enjoy their day, do different activities, have a bite to eat. And then we run support groups, we run advice centres, we run a home support service as well, where people will go out to your house to keep you company and do different activities with you if you live at home with dementia.
How does a pop-up shop work?
Well, what happens is that we have had all these donations from lovely people of pre-loved and some very new clothes and handbags. So what happens is we're setting it up at the moment. So it'll be open to the public from 10 to 5 on Friday and Saturday. You can come in. There are lovely things. You buy them, all great prices. They're all great bargains in there. Great quality clothes. I was just looking at there. We've some fabulous dresses and all of that now. And then all the money we raise will go to Pine Grove. We also, if people don't find anything, they can make a donation on the day, and we're going to have a little raffle. So we've a couple of hampers. We've 2 beautiful paintings that somebody donated. So if you don't find something you like or love, you can make a donation anyway.
Where is it going to be?
It is in George's Court Shopping Centre. I want to thank Kathleen Fitzgerald for giving us the shop. So it's just opposite Argos. It's in that unit there opposite Argos in George's Court Shopping Centre.
And for a pop-up shop, do you have to pay taxes or anything like that for the weekend? No, you don't.
No, it's a charity.
It's a charity thing.
It's a charity, and every penny will go to Pine Grove.
Yeah.
And it's so important, that we support the Alzheimer's Society in Pine Grove. The work that they do, a lot of it, I suppose, people don't realise how important it is. The fact that they provide care to people's homes, give people who are caring for people with dementia a break. And that's probably the most important thing that anybody could get when they're caring for somebody with dementia, is a break. Because you've lost somebody, you need to get yourself together, you need a break out of the house, you need normality, I suppose, in a way. And that's what the Alzheimer's Society allow families to have.
Anne-Marie, weekends like this are obviously very, very important.
Yes, hugely important. We are semi-funded by the HSE, so we get about 60% of our funding from the HSE, but nationally as an organisation we actually need to raise about 3 million every year just to keep our doors open.
Wow.
Which is a huge, phenomenal amount of money. Ourselves, normally on a year to break even and keep our doors open, we need to fundraise about 25-30 grand just to keep the services open.
Wow.
Which is a huge amount of money. So events like these are hugely, hugely important to us.
And there's great support, because obviously anybody that has been connected with Pine Grove, anybody who's had relatives there, feels that great work that you do.
Yeah, we're very, very lucky in that we have some very, very dedicated people who keep coming back year after year, organising fundraisers, helping us out, giving a bit. You know, every little bit helps, even if it's €5 in an envelope. Every little bit helps to keep things ticking over.
So what time is it opening the weekend?
We're open on Friday morning at 10 o'clock, so 10 to 5 Friday and Saturday. And like I said, we're in the process now of setting it up, and hopefully we're looking for the people of Waterford, I suppose, to support us. Like, it's a 2-day event, and like every penny that you give will do some good to somebody here in Waterford. Like, it won't be going anywhere. All the money is going to the Pine Grove Centre here in Waterford.
Well done, Anne. Fair play to you.
No, I mean, like, I've had loads of help.
I know you haven't. There's a lot of people and too many people to thank. I know that.
Two, but there is 3. Like Kathleen Fitzgerald,
yes.
The Hanger for giving me the rails, and Kelly's for giving me the rails. Like, because without help like that, you couldn't do it. I wouldn't have that capacity to do it.
Super.
So, like, people like that, they don't want to be thanked. They don't, but I have to thank them because I couldn't have done it otherwise.
And continued success in your own.
Oh, thanks very much, Damien.
Fair play to you. You're going a good few years now.
25.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Anne-Marie Veal, manager of the Pine Grove Centre, thank you so much for coming into us this morning.
Cheers, thanks.
We're going to be talking about lamb in a second.
It's a whole new conversation. Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's Pharmacy. Over 60 years together. Thanks to you.
Now, what you gonna do about me?
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Welcome back to the programme. Keep your texts and comments coming in. I have 2 children with ADHD, says this person. It's a life condition. I was cut off the DCA. It's a life condition. Why cut payments for families that need the allowance? Damien, my child was assessed by the HSE for speech therapy last November in Waterford City. It was decided he needed a bit of help with it, so we're on the waiting list since. I've had to go private, €70 a session. Keep your texts and comments coming in. Firstly, we have a lovely report from Kieran O'Connor. He's been to the farm of Willie Drone, Comeragh Mountain Lamb.
My Farming Week, a Déise Today special on WLR.
With thanks to the Southeast's leading agri-business advisors, PwC Waterford.
Well, thanks, Damien. And my next stop in my farming week is up in the Comeragh Mountains to meet Willie Drone of the famous Comeragh Mountain Lamb. And really not alone famous down here in the southeast, but indeed nationally as well. First of all, Willie, thanks for having us here.
Thank you, Cian.
Willie, Comeragh Mountain Lamb, and just going back, starting it all out, when did you decide that the Comeragh Mountain Lamb had something special?
In 2008, we started Comeragh Mountain Lamb. And I suppose what gave us a little insight was Connemara Hill Lamb was there. And we felt that, lambs on the Comeragh Mountains would have that special taste and quality too. So I spoke to my brother-in-law, Aidan Dunwoody, and we said we'd start and see how to go first.
Now, you're the farming man, you're the sheep farmer, mixed farmer here. You have dairy, you have beef, and obviously sheep. Your brother-in-law, just before we came in here, you said he'd no involvement in farming before. That was totally sales area he was coming from.
Sales, I suppose. Sorry, he'd done a farm management course, but then had worked for a while in his younger years on farm management, but moved on to sales then.
So you had the idea, he had the sales, marketing, you had the production end, but getting it out there must have been difficult enough in the early years, getting the Cumra lamb out there, Cumra Mountain lamb out there.
Well, yeah, the first couple of years are very hard because you move only a very small number, and to make it pay was hard. But I suppose, look, it really started off as a hobby, maybe first, an idea, and it developed. And I suppose one thing that gave us a lift was Michael Quinn was head chef in Waterford Castle, and he tried 2 lambs. Aidan approached him, he got 2 lambs there, and Michael said, I'm going to use this at a Terra Madra food festival in Waterford, which put a bit of pressure on because they had some of the top foodies there. And but it went down very well that night. Doreen Allen spoke well of it that night in her speech finishing up, I remember, and that gives you the confidence to go.
That must have been a fantastic moment for yourself and Aidan, because you had put the brand out there, but here were some of the top chefs in Ireland, Michael Quinn, as you say, in the castle, but the likes of Doreen Allen said that Cumra lamb was something special, Cumra Mountain lamb. That must have been a great boost for you.
Oh yeah, it is. I suppose maybe it is, at times I think about those things, and I say maybe the guys that play sport, maybe like winning in All Ireland, and you put yourself out there and you try.
That was the light bulb moment, as they say. Then of course you mentioned also Arkeen Stores, who have been so good to support local food producers. Arkeen Stores came on board. That was big for you as well.
Yeah, that was I suppose that was our goal, to get into Arkeen Stores too, and we started there with doing a food market in the car park on a Sunday morning. Aidan used to do it every Sunday morning, and he looked after that side of things. And we'd done that for about a year, and then we were approached by Arkeen Stores, and I approached them, and we got into Arkeen Stores.
And then of course locally within the region, top restaurants including the Tannery, Paul Flynn, the Tannery, and again that was adding to your profile.
Oh yeah, all adds to the profile. Paul Flynn and Tannery, you know what I mean, as White Horses and Armour, Hanover's and Denia, all these places, these smaller places, maybe not necessarily smaller places, but people that believe in local food,
got the name out there,
and want to get the name. You want to get the name.
You mentioned earlier about, obviously you had the lamb, Michael Aidan Dunwoody had the sales and marketing end. Obviously an abattoir was important, so you went to Waterford City for your abattoir.
Went to Waterford City, Kieran. There's only 3 left in this county, one in Kilmacthomas, one in Lismore, and one in Waterford City. So we went to O'Flynn Meats and started to work with them, and I've got on well with them and still working with them.
Obviously, as I said in the intro, you're brought up on a sheep farm. I know you told me again before when I spoke to you about all of this, it's your uncle started the enterprise here up in the Cumras.
Yeah, my uncle's farmed here, Willie and Paddy, and they were here for their lifetime. I suppose they held on to sheep in tougher times, as likewise in other farms in the mountain regions where money was tighter, no direct payments, stayed with the sheep farming, and the lambs are sold on to men that came in to buy them and fatten them and moved on. But that tradition was kept going.
But you always had a love for farming, William, and in particular sheep.
Well, always, I suppose, a love for farming. Look, as I said, my dad worked in Glanbia. My 2 uncles were here, a little bit out the road. That time you'd cycle out and even after school, and you'd start doing the jobs with them here, maybe in 4th or 5th class. Had a love for it. Never too anxious about the books, I suppose. And that's what I think in my previous interview. You leave school at 15. That time farming was different. You just went walking, and you love sheep. I suppose I used to go in lambing time in April. I remember before you go to school in the morning, you'd meet the bus down the road at 5 to 8, and for secondary school, and I'd go off at 6:30 maybe to look at the sheep lambing. And I'd come over and tell the 2 uncles what I saw, what I didn't see, and then you go to school. And the same way in the evening when you
come
home.
And of course the mountain lamb, people don't realise, a lot of the time up in the mountain, but for the lambing, as in the March, April, the sheep are brought down to lowland.
Yes, I suppose, it's a different job to the lowland flock, where I suppose we start lambing in April, but the 10th of April is usually lambing time in the hills. And them sheep come off the mountain maybe mid-March. It's gone a little bit more professional now again, if that's the right word to use.
More compact lambing?
Yeah, not compact, but we scan our ewes now. And the ewes, hill sheep are getting better care now than what they used to get, say, when I grown up. We scan our ewes now in January, and they go back up the mountain, and maybe the first week of March we bring them in, we take down the ones with 2 lambs. They're held most years, if the weather's right, you have grass, and then last week in March, then we take down the ones that have the singles.
Lambs kept down as the ewes go back up to the lambs stay down?
No, we lamb then, I suppose I've just come back. We lamb now, just in the first, lamb starts about 10th of April. It takes about 6 weeks. 80% of them will be gone through in the first 3 weeks. So in turn, in mid-May, they go back up the mountain with their mothers.
And do they get any extra feed other than the herbage that you get up on the mountain?
In the winter months, they go up in the mountain then for the summer months, and we start killing in mid-August, say. And it's like I suppose any animals, you'll always say the lambs that animals that will do better.
Right.
But then as the winter comes in and the quality of the grass disimproves, we supplement with usually a barley based diet.
So there's really a window when Cumra Mountain lamb is available, the quality Cumra Mountain lamb.
Yeah, the window is from mid-August till the end of April, and that's how, so it's probably approximately 9 months of the year, but we don't have it for them 3 summer months when people expect. Look, when we started first, people would say, guys we're talking to sell to would say to you, we'd use lamb in May, June and July.
Right.
And this has gone on with 7 or 8 years, and now they accept that, you won't get mountain lamb in May, June, July, and are willing then to, I suppose a lot of people we deal with here, that are chefs that believe in seasonal products, and these are the guys that were, that believe in that, and they're happy enough to move away.
The key to your success that you have it in season.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. They move on to the times of the year. They move on to their deer. You know what I mean. They might use us for 3 months.
Right.
They move on to venison. They come back to it again in February, March.
Right. Works well. Then as regards the flock size, what type of flock size are you at now from what you were at where you're now? Indeed, what type of numbers are you involved with Cumra Mountain lamb going to the abattoir?
Yeah, I suppose stayed home school first. We had about 250 ewes here. We now have a flock of around 600 Scotch ewes, and so we do approximately, it's not like your lowland flock maybe where you get 1.7 and 2 lambs per ewe. Like in a hill flock, if you end up with 1 lamb per ewe, I think you're going very well.
And how many would you have gone to the abattoir then in season as such?
We go to about, say, 400, maybe 450 lambs on my own farm. But we've as time has moved on, we get lambs off of other farmers in the Cumra regions, be the Nire side, some of them at the Nire side of the mountain, some of them are beside us here, some of them we have a hill farm in Rackham, County Waterford, and there's more of them there. So that's what makes up the whole.
And as a way of life, obviously it's labour intensive. You have a big flock, and especially with the Cumra Mountain lamb element on top of just a standard flock. You have your dairy, you have your beef enterprise. Who else helps Willie Drone on the farm?
Anyone that's willing to help Willie Drone on the farm. I thought, look, my wife helps. I have a family, young family with 5 kids. The 2 older girls are 11 and 12. They help. We have a neighbour that works here at times, and he works in the springtime when busy times, and it's all part of it.
And the lambing time here for your girls, and indeed for all the family. I see your young little son here this morning. As regards the lambing time, it's hectic, but it's a brilliant time on any sheep farm.
Yeah, it is hectic, but I mean it's the time of the year. I suppose times you don't, in general, you look forward to it. And, the kids are out. You know what I mean? It's a big thing to get home from school and get out lambing. And, I'm out, you're out. The days are long. You start maybe at 6 or half 6. You finish at 10 or half 10 at night. Some nights you might finish at a little bit earlier if things go well. And, look, the weather is so important to it here.
Willie, as regards expanding your flock here and setting up Cumra Mountain lamb, obviously finance and credit was very important. How difficult was it setting it up?
Yeah, look, I suppose, in difficulty, the investment would have been to provide credit to supermarkets, say. It works on an end-of-month system, you get paid 30 days after. That's where...
Cash
flow. And you put a van on the road. And something, you have to take into consideration too, and maybe as farmers we don't, is your own time. There's a price on that, and in farming, we're inclined to forget about it. And but they were the difficult things. You know what I mean? As the cash flow was the hardest.
And actually, going into the banks, how difficult was it, or were they fairly receptive to your concept, or was that difficult?
Yeah, we done it gradually, which we found was good for us and maybe good for the bank. Year one, the numbers were smaller. Yes. Maybe we were doing 12 to 15 lambs a week.
You creep before you could run.
Yeah, and the van had to be, it was an old second-hand van, and, then as it gradually went on, the numbers got bigger, but I suppose the banks were happy enough, we're walking away with it.
Willie, you love this way of life.
I do, yeah, it's just a lovely way of life, Kieran, you know what I mean? Okay, as any job, I suppose you'll have your good days and you have your bad days, but overall, it's a lovely way of life.
But obviously a lot of support. You mentioned earlier in passing about support for the mountain flocks, for the mountain sheep. It's so important, the aid that's there now as well, because without that it would be nearly impossible.
Oh, like Shaquille, without it, you know what I mean? The direct payments are such an important part of farming now, and at times whether you love them or like them, you know what I mean, whether you dislike them, I suppose, or not, you won't farm without them. Which is, whether it's right or wrong, I don't really know, but you just need it to do it now, And I believe, like, if there's other issues in hill farming that if they're not looked after, there's a danger, hill farming won't be there in 15, 20 years time.
Because there's a big push to sustainability, and what you're doing with your sheep up in the mountain, eating the herbage that's up here on the Cummers, it doesn't get more natural than that.
No, but then I suppose, Cian, and what a concern I would have going forward is about, the herbage is very important in the Cummers, and there's an issue, and maybe there, and it's a big issue, it's the burning of the mountains. And
is that still an issue?
That is a big issue, Cian, and I think it needs to be looked after.
So what would you like to see happen, William? What needs to happen?
Well, I think, the issue now is we are getting so fearful you don't burn your mountains anymore. And that's grand to stopping a short. In the short term, it's okay because the mountains haven't been burnt. There were no mountains burnt this year.
And what's the benefit to the non-initiated of the burning?
Well, you get a young regrowth. And like I was only saying that. I basically.
Is that lack of knowledge by the people who make these decisions?
I think so. Yeah. I think you know what I mean, Cian, the local knowledge and the knowledge that has run these mountains for hundreds of years isn't taken into account, and. Like, when we were young, you could go out and... when I was young here, they try and burn a part of the mountain every year. They didn't want to burn the full mountain. But you see, like, the dates are brought back now, you can't burn after the end of February, 1st of March. And you won't... in practical terms, you won't burn the mountain.
So you'd worry about the future of this fabulous herbage you have?
Yes, you would, yeah.
So short term okay, but long term you're concerned?
Long term I would be concerned, and nobody wants to see thousands of acres getting burned to people's houses, woodlands. We don't want that. But I think a simple I don't know, it might sound a bit radical, but a simple, like, go back 4 or 5 years ago when there were fires lit, and the next thing you see, the fire brigades going out to put out the fires, right? And I think a simple way, rather than getting the firemen to go out and put out the fires, get the firemen to go out in conjunction with the farmers
to work with them
and light the fire and keep a controlled burning.
A controlled burning.
Controlled burning is, what I mean, and it needs to be done on our hills. Like, we went out, we as you mentioned this, Jan, we have you put your old sheep back out the mountain again in March, right? And myself and the daughter, so we went off there one day in the Easter holidays with them, and like the parts of the mountain, the headers maybe 12, 15 inches high, and you can't walk it. Like, I mean, if that's not looked after, and even for wildlife, everyone needs it. But look, there's issues that needs to be sorted.
Well, really, it's a fascinating story. I'm delighted that Cummer Mountain Lamb is such a success story. Not alone locally, of course. Now you're doing so well in Dublin as well.
Yeah, Dublin is a big part of our business now, and getting, what I mean, some of the top end Michelin star restaurants.
Well, to yourself and Aidan Dunwoody, well done. It's a fabulous concept, and really promoting Cummer Mountain Lamb, the sustainable production of lamb, and getting that better margin, and obviously working very hard with Cummer Mountain Lamb. To you, your wife Bridget, all the family, the very best in the future. And listen, thanks for taking time out to talk to us. Willie Drone and Cummer.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks very much, John.
Well, that's it for my farming week. Today, Damien. Tomorrow, I'm in Ballymallala, Kappa, to meet dairy farmer Tom Power, former National Quality Milk Award winner. I'll talk to you then.
My Farming Week, a Déise Today special on WLR.
With thanks to the Southeast's leading agri-business advisors, PwC Waterford.
Kieran, thank you very much for that lovely report. Text in from Casey. You might remember we were coaching her case last week. Damien, thank you for everything. Just had my appointment. Great news. I'm fit for the operation. Going to have it this Friday, hopefully. Beyond grateful. Best of luck, Casey. Vincent has texted in. Our Irish government purchased 200 diesel buses in the last 8 months. Now, thanks Jennifer for producing. Thanks David for helping out. Jeff is up next.